the same hall of the people where Mao Zedong received me, the Premier of the People's Republic, Zhou Enlai, made some New Year affirmations of his own. To my questions in English, the Premier gave direct replies in Chinese.
抽烟的啊？抽烟吧？
抽。
上海干得好啊？
上海 fine.
I found it
非常有。
exciting city.
哦，看那个。南京。
Nanking.
就到这三个地方。南京、无锡、上海。
Premier Joe, I find such a sharp contrast for the better between conditions in China today and those conditions I saw here in 1960. That I wonder if I would be right in assuming that China's economic level, general economic level, is now the highest in her history.
是啊，现在可以说啊，我们这个国民经济的情况，是全面好转了。在这个调整工作已经基本完成了。在这个农业的产量上。
Yes. It can now be said that our national economy has achieved an all-round turn for the better, and the work of readjustment has in the main been completed. The agricultural output this year surpassed the peak figure at the end of the first 5-year plan, and the output of grains and cotton in particular increased considerably as compared with last year. In industry, great progress has been made not only in the quantity, but also in the variety and quality of the products. And it can be said that an all-round leap forward has been made in industry. In science and technology, it has reached quite a remarkable level. You can see what has been achieved in culture and education, from the reforms in the drama and the development of education. As for market supply, you have seen that daily necessities are plentiful. It is true that there still is scarcity in the supply of cotton cloth, but the growth of cotton production over the past 2 years has provided us with great possibilities for increasing the output of cloth. At the same time, the production of chemical fibers is also increasing. We are confident that in the course of the third 5-year plan, the supply of clothing for the people will further grow. The present situation in our national economy is one of an all-round turn for the better and of an all-round growth. This will be conducive to an upsurge in our industrial and agricultural production next year, and has also laid a good basis for the third 5-year plan.
You will soon be having session of the National People's Congress, and I presume that you'll be making a report on all these matters. I wonder if you could give me some indication of the main points of that report.
The National People's Congress convenes on December 21st. It will be the first session of the third National People's Congress. On behalf of the government, I shall make a report to the National People's Congress on the work of the government, which will probably touch upon the following 3 aspects. First, socialist construction. Second, socialist revolution. And third, international questions.
Do you see any possibility of improvement in Sino-American relations? But secondly, do you think it would be useful under present circumstances to have some exchange of scientists and scholars.
这个问题我跟你谈过2次了。这个中美关系的改进呢，必须从原则上先解决。就是还是。
In order to improve Sino-American relations, we must start with matters of principle and not with side issues. At the Sino-American ambassadorial talks in Warsaw, we always put forward the following 2 points of principle. One is that agreement should be reached between China and the United States on peaceful coexistence on the basis of the 5 principles. And the other, that the United States must withdraw all its armed forces from Taiwan and the Taiwan Straits. Once agreement can be reached on these 2 points of principle, other questions will be settled rather easily. Otherwise, the mere tackling of side issues will not solve the fundamental problem. The Warsaw talks have already been going on for more than 9 years, but the United States has all along refused to agree on these 2 points of principle. The United States follows others in saying that it too is for peaceful coexistence. But when China calls for it, the United States refuses. Doesn't this prove the hypocrisy of the words of the U.S. government? As for the question of visits to China by some individuals, no agreement is possible at the present time either. Those whom we welcome, the U.S. government won't allow to come, while those it wants to send to China are not welcomed by us. In a word, when questions of principle are not settled, there's deadlock even on minor issues. Perhaps you are an exception. We welcome you, and the U.S. State Department recently permitted you to come.
Well, Mr. Premier, under these circumstances, the indication that the United States policy favors creation of an independent Taiwan would seem to remove the possibility, perhaps for many years, of any normalization of Sino-American relations.
那不仅是几年的问题了，那也许是不晓得多少年了。现在当然。
At the present time, the Chiang Kai-shek clique on Taiwan claims to represent China. Of course, no patriotic Chinese can agree to that. But if there should be someone on Taiwan who is so depraved as to completely follow the beck and call of the United States and serve the needs of U.S. policy by declaring Taiwan to be a so-called independent political unit and relying on the majority in the United Nations under the manipulation and coercion of the U.S. government, continue to usurp China's lawful seat in the United Nations. I can tell you frankly that not only would it be impossible to improve and to restore Sino-American relations, but what is more, we would have nothing whatsoever to do with the United Nations. If such a situation should arise, the Sino-American confrontation will not be a question of a few years. It will be of a long duration, of we don't know how many years. It will remain that way until the day comes, and I believe the day will come, when the United States finds itself no longer able to continue along this path and gives up this policy.
Very rapidly, the number of nations that favor restoring China's seat in the UN is increasing. More and more nations now maintain relations with China. It may be that there's a majority already in favor of seating China in the UN. Do you expect to see China's seat restored this year?
No.
That is in the present session, 1965.
No.
We do not.
那不可能嘛。
That's not possible.
现在
Although there are now 50 countries which have recognized us and established diplomatic relations with us, and the number will perhaps increase further, the United States will be able to use various methods to obstruct the restoration of our legitimate rights in the United Nations and prevent the expulsion of the Chiang Kai-shek clique from the United Nations. Therefore, it's certain that no change will yet take place this year.
In the meantime, we have an urgent new factor involved in Sino-American relations, the bomb. Judging from reports published abroad, China's bomb was of a much more sophisticated nature than American experts anticipated. I wonder if it would be possible for you to comment on just what it has meant in terms of China's technological and scientific engineering development.
是啊，你晓得我们，这个地壳原子弹的，经过这个试验后爆炸，美国的专家，
The American experts have come to the conclusion from the data they collected that the technical level of the atom bomb we exploded is higher than that of the first nuclear tests of the United States, Britain, and France. On this matter, the American experts know more than you do, and perhaps also more than I do.
因为我们俩都不是专家嘛。
Neither of us are experts.
Sir, tension in Southeast Asia, especially in Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia, is reaching a critical stage. May I ask, under what circumstances China would render aid to these countries, such as she extended to North Korea?
在这个
The situation in South Vietnam is linked with the entire Indochina question. And it is precisely on the question of expanding the war in Indochina that the United States is now hesitant. It's always anxious to know China's attitude. China's attitude is very clear. That is, if the United States should run rampant in Indochina, we will definitely not sit idly by. The United States has tasted of the Korean War, and if it wants to wage a Korean-type war in Indochina, it should know what will happen and what the result will be. Therefore, the United States may acquaint itself with our attitude simply through our published statements. However, the U.S. government often doesn't believe these statements. It always thinks that our public statements are one thing and what we actually intend to do is another. The United States is always anxious to get some inside information, thinking that only then can decide on its policies. In fact, it doesn't understand that throughout the 15 years since the founding of the People's Republic of China, every word that we have spoken counts. We mean what we say. Unlike them, we don't practice double tactics, saying one thing while doing another. Ours is a socialist state. We're responsible to the Chinese people and responsible to the people of the whole world. We live up to our words.
I hope we have time for one question on Sino-Soviet relations. Perhaps the most direct one would be, since the fall of Khrushchev, does China still insist that the Soviet Union should not participate in the next Afro-Asian conference?
关于亚非会的问题，我们是坚定地遵守。
With regard to the forthcoming African Asian Conference, we firmly abide by all the agreements reached at the preparatory meeting for the second Asian African Conference held last April in Jakarta. At that meeting, as in the Bandung Conference, unanimity had to be achieved before agreement on any question could be reached. As for those questions which the majority of the participants did not approve of, or on which no agreement could be reached, they were set aside. The principles of reaching agreement through unanimity and seeking common ground while retaining differences are precisely the Bandung spirit commonly acknowledged by the Asian and African countries. These principles were once again adhered to at the Jakarta preparatory meeting.
That's very clear. I have 100 other questions, but I think I have consumed all the time you have generously allotted me. And I want to thank you very much for a very enlightening interview.
Well,
thank you.
Very good. Goodbye. 晚安见。
谢谢。
晚安见。